Where should I sit?
No, you just right there. Okay. Oh, is it okay if I record you just for accuracy?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay. All right. What is your full name and age?
Legal name?
Yes.
So I'm performer Shirley Blazen.
Okay.
My legal name is Julie Anna Hardesty, Hardesty. And my age? I'm 29. I just turned 29.
Awesome. You look wonderful.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. Are you originally from Chicago?
I grew up right outside of Chicago in Lombard, so Chicagoland suburb.
How do you spell that?
Lombard, Lombard.
How long have you been a burlesque dancer or teacher?
I've been teaching for about a year and a half. I started as a student in 2012 here at the studio.
What made you interested in teaching?
In teaching, I wanted to be a part of the movement. I love burlesque and what it's done for me, and I wanted to impart that and share that with the community.
What's your favorite part about burlesque dancing?
My favorite part about burlesque is the celebration of all bodies and taking the gaze that would traditionally be toward the viewer to the performer. I like the body positivity as well as the empowerment that it brings.
Yeah, I found that really interesting when I went to see the show. I was really happy that they kind of included all body types in there. It kind of was self-motivating in a way.
Yeah. I love that atmosphere.
What's the hardest thing about burlesque dancing?
Hardest thing about burlesque dancing. As in the technical sense, or
It could be anything.
I think one of the hardest things about burlesque dancing is trying to educate the public on burlesque dancing. There's a lot of misconceptions about burlesque.
Mm-hmm. So what's one misconception that's widely believed in the community that a lot of people are really surprised to find out that isn't true?
Traditionally, I believe that people think burlesque is only for one body type, a feminine hourglass. You need a corset, feathers, the whole 9 yards, and that's definitely not the case. There's no one burlesque, uniform. Same as there's no one burlesque type of performance. Like you saw Star Wars burlesque.
Right.
Yeah, that's a new neo-burlesque.
Yeah, and I have actually never seen Star Wars, so I was very, I'm going to be lost, and I don't know what they're talking about, but I caught on because I just kind of knew references.
Oh,
It was good.
yeah. The narrative.
Have you been to one of their shows to see them? The
I have
parodies?
not. I have
You
not
should.
seen it. I need to. I need to this year get out for more shows because I'm so wrapped with teaching
Right.
and rehearsals here that I just miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting out there watching shows.
There's so much burlesque in Chicago.
Yeah, that's what I found. There's a lot. There's a lot. What's your definition of burlesque?
Burlesque is an artful striptease, which I guess, so here I am self-editing, may include actual stripping. It may just be more of a parody, very theatrical dance, performance art. It's grown over what is the stereotypical, what people believe is that French cabaret type burlesque. It's really an all-encompassing performance art.
Tell me one thing that most people don't know about burlesque.
I don't know about burlesque.
about it too. No rush.
I'm stumped here to think of like what everyone might not know about burlesque.
Like even if it's like a funny fact or like just something interesting about what you wear.
Okay. Well, one thing that a very common misconception is that you have to have a certain body type to twirl tassels. That's the typical, the little dangles hanging from your nips. People think that you have to have like a certain boob size or look or whatnot. Any body can put on tassels, and we also have you could spin tassels on your butt too.
Oh, really?
It's also, yeah, we call them assels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Creative.
Yeah. I think that's a fun one that people, that's a common misconception with the dance. I know when I started, I didn't think I was like, oh no, I don't have I thought you'd have to have a lot.
Right. Yeah, that's what I always thought.
The
Like, you
technique.
have to have a certain like type for it to work, or like I don't know. So do they have like different sizes that you would get, or?
They're all, most of them you can get them custom made for your whatever nipple coverage. The reason that we have tassels is because strip tease, like you're not allowed to, obviously the female nipple is very much condemned.
Right.
Right. And that's how that started. But yes, they come in all sizes. You can measure. We make them here. We do custom ones, and we sometimes have workshops on how to make them as well.
Oh.
Yeah, and then you can really hang anything from them. I've hung like streamers to look like a bike.
Oh.
Yeah.
Creative.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do with them.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of burlesque?
History of burlesque, so that started, it's actually a lot older than people think. So in the 17th century it started, and it was definitely more of a drama type theatrical that was defined as burlesque. What we kind of derive and what we know now from like American burlesque stems from like the late 1800s, where there were it was very politically charged, and there was, I mean, especially you have like those Victorian garments. There was not the striptease that we may think of with feathers and fun and bumps and grinds, but it was more of a political vaudeville performance piece. It wasn't until about the 1930s that they incorporated more striptease, where one of the figureheads of burlesque, Sally Rand, who is a pioneer for striptease, really is, I think, the most iconic. What we think of as burlesque. She did fan dances, so the big feather fans, very beautiful. I think that's what most of the consensus of like what burlesque is. You see that with Sally Rand. And from the 1930s onward, you saw this evolution of more like gentlemen's club lounges where you could particularly see a burlesque show. And a lot of that was produced from like a male point of view. And so you'll see legends with their big feather boas in their, cigar infested lounges. Oh goodness, I could not imagine steaming those costume pieces. And as we are around it now, about like I would say like the 90s, it is 90s, 2000s is when there's been like a resurgence for burlesque, particularly in Chicago. We pioneered the nerdlesque movement, which is kind of what you saw with Star Wars burlesque. It's very much the parody back to not just like a bump and grind, but very much a let's emulate our favorite books or movies, or let's make our own shows. So there'll be more non-male produced shows, variety. Some shows go back into like a cabaret vaudeville atmosphere. That's where our weekly show tends to be centered around, where we also include like singing, other performance art, magicians, comedians. But it wasn't until about the mid-2000s that you saw that there was that in the world. Chicago is actually has a big burlesque history, the whole speakeasy roaring 20s. That's where you'll see a lot, and that's really where a lot of burlesque has come from.
And they still kind of keep that traditional look too, with like the feathers and like the outfits. It's kind of like 20s-ish looking.
Yes, absolutely. Especially, and that is one of the most, because that's a common conception of what burlesque is. That's the most, when like a corporate event or someone is going to actually pay performers to come out, they want that look.
Right. They want it to look a certain way, so.
Yeah.
Right, makes sense. So then how is burlesque in Chicago different from burlesque in other areas, or like other parts of the U.S.?
It wasn't until recently I started traveling and meeting other performers from across the country and world. In Chicago, I think